Hello, everyone. I have a special guest today that I've been actually really looking forward to speaking with. His work is fascinating, and I really can't wait for him to share all about it. His name is Mike Martin, and his YouTube is My Dark Explorations. Mike has written incredible books. He's going to talk a little bit about his experience, how he's come to a lot of this information. We're going to go as deep into the rabbit hole as we can. No, what did they say? No holds bar.
Mhm.
So I am very much looking forward to it. But before, Mike, before you get into talking a little bit about all of this, I want to read what you've written on your YouTube so people can have a foundation of what it is you do.
Okay.
So on Mike's YouTube, in his My Dark Explorations, it's also on Rumble. He's written, I've developed this channel to help you. The information I present is based on my own personal experiences of more than 3 decades of explorations utilizing portals in multiple states of consciousness, alternate realities, dimensions, the astral, the dream state, and beyond. Fascinating. So here we go. And when you say they don't like that, can you go into the entity force of what they comprise?
Well, I just want to, when I say they,
Mhm.
that's the only word that I can
Is
think
it
of.
like a logi that is overseeing?
The easiest way to explain it is we're like bright stars that create
Hmm.
energy. We are energy is
Yeah.
what we are.
Hmm.
And we're surrounded by a darkness that absorbs our energy. That's the whole purpose
Yeah.
behind us being here. So it absorbs our energy.
Hmm.
And that is the they
Yeah.
in this whole scenario, because if it wasn't for us they wouldn't be here, and if it wasn't for them we wouldn't be here.
Hmm.
So they are absorbing. Now when it comes down to, okay, what do they look like, who are they, or, well, they are multifaceted. They're the ones who obviously oversee the production of this whole scenario that we're in, whether it's the astral or the physical. They're also the subconsciousness, the whole entity of the subconsciousness. You could call it an AI type of machine, but it's far beyond anything that you could ever understand as being an AI system.
Hmm.
Um, it's and there's so much of the inner workings that we don't really know about or understand. But you can look at it as also, when you go. Let me give you an example. When you're in your dream state, and maybe there's a dark entity that's creating a nightmare or
Hmm.
whatever it is, and you see it as a, I don't know, maybe it's a one-eyed monster for you, and maybe to a child it's Dracula, or to me it might be the darkness, like just the blackness from within.
Hmm.
What happens is, since we're physical beings, we base everything on how we visually see it or what it's made out of or whatever. But most of what's doing this is non-physical. They're non-physical. So they can create their own image any way they choose to, and they can create the landscape any way they choose to, because this is can actually do this. Not saying on a general physical level right now, but we have the ability to create.
Hmm.
We just don't remember how to do it. But the whole thing is they're creating this whole production around us, and we're just acting out uh, what they're programming us to do in order for us to produce the energy that's required for them to. So we're just stuck in this fishbowl living this life, and we're
Yeah.
puppets for them, and we keep following their protocol because we believe that's the only way that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's not really a, when I say they, it's just so vast.
Mhm.
It's really
Yeah.
not just one.
I like to call it the phenomena because it changes, no, like depending on what your consciousness and subconsciousness is.
Well,
So,
yeah, the subconsciousness, like I said, is part of that their whole structure.
mhm,
The structure that we're trapped within is, and I call Earth the prison, then I call the astral the prison yard.
mhm,
The subconsciousness is what I would be considered the warden. It oversees it, so basically, it's would be sitting up here, and I call it. It's part of what I call the etherical database. Ether makes up the foundation of whatever is created around here.
mhm.
And ether is also an energy that is conscious at some level, and then
Yeah.
it's an intelligent one. So like everything you think and hear and read and could possibly feel or any of your emotions are constantly being read and it knows everything that you've ever had or known. It knows everything, so there's nothing that you can do that it doesn't know ahead of time what's going to happen. It's in charge. It's connected to you in every way. It's an intelligent energy that monitors everything, monitors all of us.
Mhm.
So what's happening is, and when you're and it knows that if you fear a certain thing, then it's going to expose you. That when the need for fear is there, then you're going to be subjected to it. And it's just like all they're doing is we're their cattle, and they're the predators right now. We're
Mhm.
the prey. And my idea, my solution to our problem, our plan, and I produced it about I don't know 2 months ago. Is it's called the solution. What it is it reverses the role of the predator prey scenario. We become the predator, and they become the prey. It's the only way that we're going to get ourselves out of the situation, because you can't manipulate the masters of manipulation. You have to, instead of trying to beat them at their own game, you have to draw them into your game and then beat them at your game.
And then by beating them at their game,
We're
how,
gonna beat them at our game.
well, at our game, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but what does that look like?
Well, they require us to emit energy in order to
Mhm,
feed them. So just like as like a motor can either be an energy consumer or a
mhm,
generator, one way
mhm.
or the other.
Right.
We can do either. We can
Mhm,
consume energy and we can generate energy. My idea was to go ahead and take our energy back from them. Because if there's nothing here for them to benefit from, then
mhm,
there's no sense in being here. They won't be here.
mhm,
And the mechanism that keeps us also chained within this system also requires energy to keep it going.
mhm.
So my plan is to reverse the flow of energy from them to us. We bring back our energy, and I lay out a scenario. This all Since they're non-physical,
Yeah.
the only way that we're going to be able to do this is through a non-physical process, which is how we normally create.
Mhm,
We see things physically, and that's how we're supposed to believe everything works, is on a physical basis, because that's how we're trained, that's how we're programmed.
mhm,
So what I do is bring back our ability, the reminder to us that we have the ability to work within and without,
mhm.
and walk people through how to produce their own production of creating this. And as people get better at it, it's like lifting weights.
Mhm.
You go to the gym for the first couple times, or you walk on the treadmill, maybe you only go a mile and a half, feel like you're pouring out. You're like, okay, well, I really want to work up to, go farther and farther. So next thing you know, maybe 2 months down the line, you might be up to 10 miles and
Mhm.
you're not out of breath, or you're bench pressing 150 pounds, after a couple months. Like, hey,
Mhm.
it's a muscle. You have to exercise your muscle in order for it to work. Well, we have these mental muscles, or these non-physical muscles, that we need to exercise, and we need to remember how we utilize them, because they're not needed here, because we're told that doesn't exist. So what I do is go through the process and the exercise of showing people how to do this. And as we begin to look within ourselves, because I tell people that we need to be independent and self-reliant.
Mhm.
And don't look to me, don't look to anybody else
Yeah.
for guidance. Look within yourself.
Mhm.
Because the more you start to look within, the more you believe in yourself, the more powerful you become, and the more resilient and the more self-reliant you become. Because at some point you're going to realize, hey, I don't need anybody for this or anything else. I don't need to be a dependent person. I'm fully independent and I can do it all myself. And that's how everybody should think. You know, I want people to be independent. I want to foster independence. That's the whole purpose behind this. So, you know, what I've discovered is there's so much more out there. And I want other people to discover that there is so much more out there for them. I mean, I probably haven't seen a tenth of 1% of what we have the ability to do, but without looking within, there's no way you're going to understand that or discover that. You can't experience what you haven't experienced, and then again, you can't unexperience something that you have experienced.
To me, it sounds when you're talking about your experience, how you trained yourself to go into the dream state consciously awake. To me, that seems like that's the real conscious state, and not the quote awake state during the day when you're running errands and everybody thinks that they're being conscious, but they're not really.
You know, this is the funny thing that I tell people. I go, when you're first born, you have to learn how to talk, and you have to learn how to walk, and you have to learn how to do all these things. It takes, you know, months or a year or more to do a lot of these functions that are just normal humanly functions. First time I went on the Astral, or the first time I go into these states, I don't have to be taught how to use telepathy. I don't need to be taught how to fly, or all these things are just natural.
Right.
They happen. I didn't even have to really be taught how to open these portals. It just, I was exposed to it enough to, like, and nobody showed me. I was like, well, maybe if I just do this and that'll work. So, and it did. So we're utilizing things that are just normal.
Yeah.
We don't have to be taught. Nobody's there to teach us. So when you look at things in this nature, you realize this is where we belong. This is foreign to us.
Right. When you went in and you started asking questions, which they did not like, did you get the answers?
No. What happened was when I first started going there, it kind of like seemed like, I tell people, it's like if you go to if you go somewhere like the pyramids for the first time, all the tourists, you know, all the guys that are tour guides are going to realize you're a newbie, and they're all going to flock around you and tell you about, hey, I've got the great place to go for you and everything. They know you're a foreigner, so they know that they could sell you something. And that's kind of how everybody kind of had an idea. And a few of them told me, hey, we can show you how to keep those portals open. And to me, that was red flag number one. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I was being realistic, and I just wanted to go there and experience it. And they would offer just snippets of information, but usually they would go into this I don't know, this long kind of explanation of just generalized, I call it crap. I mean, it's like stuff you would hear on the street from somebody that would just talking. There was nothing there of value. I thought, wow, I basically come all this way and there's nothing there that I even want to hear. It's like no free energy, no how to save the world, nothing of that nature. It was just general nothing. I did hear, there was a few things of value that I did hear. I saw this one guy, he was at the end of this tunnel, the Stark Tunnel, and he said, yes, these are portals. And he said, when I say he said, he didn't say, it's in telepathy, but it was a male sounding in my head. And he said, what you see on this end, which means if I see 100-foot wide and 100-foot tall on that end, that's what they see on my end. So I'm not invisible to them.
Right.
I'm just as visible as they are.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's things like that nature. And then a couple times there was some conversations about me. And then I thought, this sounds like an egotistical massage. Yeah, I didn't buy into it. I'm like, I'm not I'm not here to be massaged and I'm not here to be a cuck or anything like that. I'm not here to buy into anybody's crap. I'm here to learn and to experience and go from there. And it's just, yeah. So
Wow.
I saw through the
Manipulations.
the manipulation and just like the shiny surface is what it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started going back there, then I had the ability to really interact.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, everybody was gone. And I was by myself.
Wow.
I was by myself, and I thought, you know what? That's kind of cool. But I did have an experience when I ended up in this one spot because I never knew where I was going to be. I just ended up in these places.
Mm-hmm.
There was a ceremony going on with I think it was 8 different avatars, and these were spiritual beings moving these avatars around. I knew there was some form of hierarchy, but I believe they were more towards the top of the line. So, like, if you went to a Catholic church, this would be like on the Pope level type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I could just kind of you can feel when something's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't happy with me being there. And I think I got kind of blocked from that. But also,
Wow.
I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
that you just know there's something there, but you just can't put your finger on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I go through this not as much as I used to,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times what I'll see is the same stuff or it's just pretty plain. But I think the biggest part of my experiences is the ability to share with other people that there's something going on far beyond even what we see.
Mm-hmm.
And the manipulation and everything it's just so openly widespread.
Mm-hmm.
Is our bubble, encompasses all of our experiences, is really well, it's under a good lock and key system.
Yeah. And how do you think we got here?
That's my next question that I'm working on. I mean, in my experience or my thoughts right now, it was some form of a lure and a trap scenario.
Yeah.
That's where my next question lies, and we'll see if I can get an answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I think for me, and no matter how many answers for questions that I get or how much information I try to pass on,
Mm-hmm.
it all comes down to one thing. We are our own worst enemies when it comes to anything, because if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for us feeding them, then they wouldn't be here. It's almost like, we have put out this cat food for these stray cats, and now the stray cats are attacking us.
Yeah.
But we keep putting the food out, even though we're scared of them. So it's like, it's like, people are their own worst enemies because they become complacent
Mm-hmm.
within their own false sense of security that they have.
The illusion's very grand.
Right. The illusion of freedom, the illusion of their own personal freedom. It's very grand. And people think that, oh, no, it's not that bad. Or even though they know it's that bad and they've experienced how bad it is, they still feel more secure within that prison cell than they do taking the opportunity to try to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. I always found that the body, the way it runs like a battery, and it shuts down like a battery, it runs out of juice. And every night you've got to go to bed, you've got to go to sleep. You experience these waves of fatigue that don't make sense. Like, there's a lot of things about the interfacing of these physical bodies that I feel have been designed for this.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're programming at nighttime. You go to sleep, and then the programming begins at night because your subconsciousness takes over, and your consciousness is sitting back here. Your subconsciousness is doing all this, and then sending it back this junk
It is
Feels like
junk.
junk.
Hmm.
Yeah. So basically, and then we go out and then from all the junk that we receive, we go back out and all the day and we go through our robotic motions or through the play and we do all this and then we come back at night, get all this crap again. And, it's just over and over. But I tell people 8 to 10 hours or how much ever you sleep during the day, you're not in control. So think about it. You're giving away a third of your life, just by whatever. And then when people go to a job where they don't really have to think, they're autonomous maybe for another 6 out of 8 hours during the day. So their subconscious is in charge there.
Yeah.
And when you're commuting every day, who knows how long of that trip you're subconsciously controlled. So most of the time, we're not even being controlled. We're not even in control of our own lives.
Yeah.
Even during the day, we're so out of control and so used to just easily just handing the wheel over and trusting in that.
Yeah, it is terrifying. I also think that there's a relationship and a connection. So in my background, I've had extreme paranormal experiences ever since I was little. I mean, like crazy extreme stuff. And I've had so much of it that I had to try and figure out, okay, what's going on here, right? Because the interaction of the experiences is going to want you to believe that it's isolated, right? That this phenomenon is only this, okay?
And it also works hard to try and make you disbelieve and forget, even though you've experienced it for yourself.
Yes, yes. But eventually I came to the conclusion it's really all the same phenomenon. It just changes. And, the other thing, which is also an interesting psychinetic ability, right? So there's some that have, these psychinetic abilities that happen usually out of control. So when you're really under stress or you're upset, you can have an effect on things. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Yeah, right?
Yes.
And to me, that's kind of like tapping into the creator ability, but it's gone rogue. Like you can't control it. So your subconscious is somehow controlling it and doing it, but you're not understanding how it works.
I want to add to that. Now, I disconnect the subconsciousness from that because I don't believe it has anything to do with the way we really want things to work out. And when they work out that way,
Right,
subconsciousness is a different entity part of that. I believe when we have those instances, and even like an instance where, say, like a guy gets in a car wreck and his wife's trapped into the car and he can lift the car up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good example of it. Now, from my experiences, not long after I started all this, then I started getting these energy rushes, and I didn't know what they were. I didn't realize what they were until I started going through the reintroduction of me into these nightmarish states about, 12 or 15 years ago. And what would happen is every time I was approached by this darkness, just like when I was a kid, I would be pulled out and I would be into a portal experience. And it was basically what it was doing is it was training me to, as I started to get all aggravated, you get all tense and drained, you start to release energy. It would stop me, pull me out of the portal. And then what it was doing, it was desensitizing me to that experience. So if it kept pulling me out and out and out, eventually it wouldn't affect me the same way, because it was like, okay, I've been through this 50 times in the last year and now it doesn't bother me. So what it did is it kept doing that over and over. So eventually I got into the dream and I wasn't expelling that energy when that darkness started to encroach around me. It was a threatening feeling. I was able to face it within one or two of the dreams the dream states, but I was lucid during these times. And at that time I held my composure and I went face to face with it. And then I walked away. And at that point I was proving to be this or they that I have the ability to control my energy. I'm not going to expel my energy for your benefit. So what I said was, you know what? If I'm creating this energy and I can contain it, then I can also absorb it. And that's part of what the solution video that I had. We can absorb that energy and we can maintain it. That's part of what we do, and we're not taught that. So what I said was, when we're in those situations, and I know now because I've been in those situations several times, what's happening is you're in that situation and you're unknowingly releasing that energy. That energy is the force that allows that changed event to take place. So it's not the subconsciousness, it's us, but we're unknowingly doing it. If we have the energy, now if we've expelled that energy and we happen to be in a situation where we're kind of low because you've been sick or something, you might not be as well versed in it. But yeah, that's what's happening. We're energy beings, and because we're so normally, it's like if you're a mother that has 5 kids and you're breastfeeding, you're only going to have so much milk available to feed your kids. So but if you go for a week and you haven't fed your kids, then obviously you're going to, have more available. Well, that's the same thing with us. If we're constantly being drained and we're constantly, then that's why we don't have the energy that we need in order to do the things that we need to do.
Do you think that they knew you were going to be doing this, so when you were a kid, they tried to get to you?
I haven't said anything about this. I don't think I've told anybody else about this. But I don't know. After I came out with my first or second book, I haven't seen my mom in a long time. She read it, and then she called me up. She goes, "I didn't tell you this because I didn't think it was relevant. I didn't think it would have any value to you, but I'll tell you now." She said, she goes, "You were about, I don't know, very young, and you were sick. You're sick a lot when you're young." She said, "You had, I guess, a lot of breathing problems." So she goes, "I was in there with you, and you were struggling to breathe, and I finally got you to sleep. And I went back in the room, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting to hear if you make any noise in the next room." And she goes, "I looked up, and there was something standing in the doorway. It wasn't a physical human being, but it had an image, and I couldn't move." She goes, "It wouldn't let me get up or go through the door." She goes, "I couldn't wake up your dad." She goes, "It was there for a matter of a couple minutes. And then finally, it disappeared, and I was able to get up and go check on her." She goes, "But I had a ton of nightmares when I was a kid. I had a lot of would think lucid abductions, it seemed like, and everything. I thought that was normal, but I always knew there was something going on. But I don't have anything to back that up. I don't have any experiences to say, okay, it was this." So for me, it was an experience that I can't put any real. There's nothing to back it up. So I don't know what it was. Because I never got to see a face, or I never got to see an image. And even if I did, now I know that I couldn't trust it because they can make themselves look like anything they want to.
And did you ever remember having experiences where you were looking at, shadow men, or you were having, strange?
No. What I would do, what would generally happen when I was a kid, it was very similar. These nightmares were all very similar. I would be running from something. I didn't know what it was. Then my arms and legs would become like numb, like when they start to fall asleep. So I would lose the ability to run. I would lose my ability to scream, and then my vision would become blurry. And that's generally when I would either be grabbed and taken somewhere that I don't remember anything, or I would that was it.
And do you think that's a real experience? Like you were actually being confronted by it? Yeah.
Yeah, because most of what those were is they were lucid, because a lot of times my mom said that I would wake her up, And she said, when I went in there, she goes, you had your eyes open and you were awake, you know? So, I mean, they were real enough to me to where I can remember them as if it almost happened recently.
Right.
You know, I mean, usually a dream, you know, I've had regular nightmares and they didn't seem like that big deal. But like the lucid dreams, like when the darkness was approaching me and stuff within these last 10 years or whatever, I was wide awake. I was lucid within these. There was, as soon as it started, I woke right up because that's how I used to do it. And as a kid, when that started happening, my mind would wake up, but I'm still in that scenario where I couldn't escape.
Right.
So that's what it was like when I was a kid too. So, and I didn't know the difference. I didn't know what lucid dreaming was because until I started doing it, I'm like, yeah, this is the same crap that used to happen when I was a kid, you know?
And it happened a lot when you were a kid.
Yeah, it happened enough to where I used to remember it all the time. People would ask me, you know, hey, what do you dream about? I'm like, I don't dream about nothing. I don't talk about it because, you know, what do you think you're going to be I grew up in the 70s. You didn't talk about stuff like that because they send you to the state hospital.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't anything good. I didn't want to be known as that weird kid, so I didn't talk about any of that stuff.
So what do you think happens when people die with this they?
I really can't answer that. I do know that there's a lot of people that do believe that when you die, then you get to make this decision of whether you want to come back, which I think, okay, even if that were true, they would put you in some type of illusional state, like they can in the dream state, and create an illusion, and you would agree with it whether you wanted to or not. Because if there was some way that you could get out of it when you died, nobody would be here. I mean, come on.
No, exactly. Yeah. Do you think?
Sorry. Good. Yeah, I just don't. I don't know because I don't remember it, and I haven't gone back and had an experience to where I was in that state to do that. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not allowed kind of in the astral state because I've always been redirected, maybe for another reason. But I know that the astral is just a very misleading place, so I don't really spend any time there.
When you have gone to the astral, were you ever encountered with like entities, like, you know, trying to attack you? Have you had the experiences of being in these different places? And
well, like in that, well, I would say the dream state is still within the astral, and that's the only time that basically I'm on the astral. The rest of it are either in alternate realities or different dimensions. And I would say that most of what I've experienced on those is probably not much different than what happens in the astral because they can mimic or duplicate whatever that you want to see or that you think you should want to see. I don't think there's that much of a difference when it comes down to how things can be manipulated. So I think it's, you know, from my experience and through the dream state, there's probably not a lot of difference in that.
Do you think that this phenomenon, let's just call it, has altered our genomes so that everybody has a timer that is very short, like you only live to be 80, 85, maybe 100. Do you think that there's something about them hacking the genome and altering our physiology so that, you know, we only last a certain amount of time and we're constantly being recycled?
I don't think they need to go that far because they have other control abilities there. I mean, if you think about it, the subconscious is within you. If they wanted you to go through a certain specific, you know, accident or something of that nature, they could easily just, you know, they're in charge of the way how the system works. I think we kind of overstress the fact that, you know, like if you look at things of this nature, say like, okay, well, they're poisoning our food. Okay, you can say that. Well, it's not by just poisoning the food to make you sick. It's also the fear of. It's also knowing that. So what they do is they propose these things, they do these things, and then you find out about it, and it makes the situation worse. When if they just wanted to kill you, then they would just kill you. But the threat of killing you is worse than killing you, because you are feeling the emotions, you are admitting the energy. So it's all about the process. They're about the process, not about the end result. It's about the process.
Do you think, based on what they're doing, which is eating us, okay, do you think that, so they're taking from our prime energy, and let's just say they're recycling this one person, you know, over and over and over again. So we're talking about however many lives, you know, let's just say 10,000 lives. Do you think that at the end of that 10,000 years or 10,000 lives, they have less actual prime energy than they did when they began as a creation?
I think, well, going through the alternate realities, I think we might be living a million lives a piece all the time. I don't know. I mean, when I think they say how many alternate realities think we have, it's unlimited. How many dimensions are? They're unlimited. There's two-dimensional worlds. There's everything. I think we could potentially be living a trillion lives simultaneously. I don't know. But we're not just living one life. I'm living within other beings that, from what I see, look like me. But the reason why we're connecting with them constantly is because we're connected with them. So I don't know how many of these places there are. There could be an unlimited supply. So like when I say, oh yeah, you know, they're sucking our energy from 8 billion people, it could be 800 trillion billion people simultaneously.
Right.
It could be how many Earths or how many other habitats, who knows? But it's not just here. When I say it's a multifaceted, multi-layered system, it's beyond our physical understanding of what we like. If we say the universe, we think the universe is like an unlimited thing. But if you knew there was an unlimited amount of unlimited universes, how could you understand that? You know, so I think we're far beyond. It's far beyond this just little ball that we're living on. It goes way beyond what we could even imagine.
Yeah, because time doesn't exist, and everything is in the now.
And everything is here. Everything is just like stacked on top of each other. You know, and so we're all just here at the same time. And when I see, and I've been doing the alternate reality thing for, I don't know, since 12 years or something. Like I've never seen the same one twice. So who knows how many there are? I mean, I don't know. And when I say I visit it, sometimes I see it, and other times I'm there. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm there, that means I'm probably also this person or this being. I just don't know. Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah, it's just it just makes your head spin, is what it does.
So, do you see humanity getting out?
Well, if we don't try, then we're never going to succeed. And I believe, and I tell everybody, I believe that if you're going to escape from somewhere, it's from the inside is your best bet. You know, it's like they say, if you're going to hack into a system, hacking in from within than from the outside is much easier. So that's why I proposed it. And, you know, obviously the more people we get is the better the chances. But I mean, it's, if we don't have any options and we have one now, then, you know, that's what we should try. But, you know, my thinking is, if you've got a bunch of people that are sold into a prison system, and even if they are freed, would they even choose to walk out and escape? That's the question you have to ask.
Yeah, that is.
You know?
Yeah, because a lot of people don't like taking responsibility.
Right. And they feel more secure with the system. So it's like, wow, it was just easier when we were prisoners, than now we have to work for ourselves. We don't want to do that.
So have you ever had a student that was extremely gifted at being able to access these
I've never had any students.
No, oh, you don't teach it.
I've always worked alone.
Yeah, okay. Right. But your books help
there
to
was a
teach people?
there was a couple people that showed some interest, but nobody followed through. So it's like,
Okay.
I think the hardest part for people in general is to put forth the amount of time or the effort or the drive. They don't have the drive.
Yeah.
For me, I wasn't looking to do this, so it wasn't something I just pinpointed and just went that way. This is the way I was kind of being led, and it's the way I went. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, then you have to go through it with both feet. So I said, if you're going to run up to a roadblock, then you have to either go through it, go over it, go around it, however you're going to do it. I just decided I go through it. And so when I really want to do something like the out of body thing, then I push forward and push forward. I just don't give up. And it could be years before I get an answer or I found a solution. But that's just the way I work, and I just keep going and going and going. I just don't give up. So for me, I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Now that I get, I've been doing it for a long time, it seems like, yeah, I get a little tired of doing that sometimes. But, if I really want the answer or I really want to find out what's on the other side, then I have to continue to do that. There's no free answers. There's no free anything. And if you don't put forth the effort, then you're not going to get the reward at the very end of it.
Yeah.
And I think, nobody wants to hear that, but that's just the way things are.
So when most people open themselves up to these dimensions and portals and these experiences, often what happens afterwards is the paranormal in their own lives, it begins to really ramp up, because now you're open to going beyond the veils, and it knows you're open. So when you started doing this, did phenomenon start happening to you?
What I found out is something I didn't take into consideration is the all those times that I was experiencing that, what I call the darkness that came in my dream state. The more and more that I was exposed to it, the more that I was affected by it. And I would describe it as like if you take this, if you had smoke that was sticky, that had some kind of a sticky substance in it, and it gets in your lungs. You breathe it in, it gets in your lungs. I tell people, like, okay, think about it this way: when you smell a smell that you don't like, what's happening? And molecules from that odor get into your body cavity and are absorbed by your sensory organs. Your sensory, they actually attach to your sensory organs. That's how you have that smell. So you're actually getting that inside your body, whether you like it or not. Well, that's what was happening. So I started going through some negative aspects of thinking and all that kind of stuff, and I just like, the hell is this? I don't understand why I'm thinking or feeling this way. And I figured it out after a while. And then I said, okay, well, it's just, you can't be exposed to something without somehow absorbing something around it, and whatever. So I figured it out, but there was a good side to that, because I now had the ability to somewhat think and feel the way that they did. So I said, what I'll do, I'm going to write down what my outlook on this situation, this predator and prey scenario is. And I wrote it down from what I believe is their point of view. And then when I did that, I was able to understand more about what our predator and prey scenario was based upon, because I could now see more of what they see of us, just looking at it from our viewpoint.
Right. And you could ascertain that a lot of what you were feeling and thinking was actually coming from them.
Their viewpoint, their perspective. Yeah. Exactly. And I think a lot of times people that are probably in the circles that are either working with these forces or whatever, probably think and feel a lot of what that is. And I can understand why a lot of people the way they are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of those people, they don't realize it.
Well, they have no sympathy or no empathy, or they just don't care about people at all. And when I tell people that, I think good people have a hard time understanding that there are those people and beings that don't care about humanity whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
that have no sympathy or empathy about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have a hard time believing that, but that's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
That is a
Yeah,
reality.
absolutely. Yeah, it is fascinating when you think it's a reality based on a predator-prey system.
Right.
And then inside, the micro aspect of the macro mimics that. It mimics the same paradigm.
Right. I mean, if a if a lion is chasing down a gazelle, do you think he is concerned about how the gazelle feels about him? You know, I mean,
Right.
his whole thing is, I want to eat.
Yeah.
If I'm going to eat, then I have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
There is no thought process about sympathy or empathy for the animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there and to do the job. And that's the situation we're in.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel the energy of them, okay, so yes, it has an AI about it, but it's not just AI. So it is a consciousness that is eating and it's consuming. But when you feel into it, what kind of an entity do you think this is?
It has nothing to do with hate and
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. What it is, it's it's an intelligent energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very intelligent, but it's doing what any other, I don't know, being would do in order to survive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And their protocol is manipulation and illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're very good at it. When I say masters, they're far beyond the mastery level.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how good you think you are at it, you're not even on the same planet as these, because that's their forte.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even imagine. It's just, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So I do give them credit. I mean, I don't blame them
Mm-hmm.
for being what they are. I have to understand them in order to find a way around how we can get out of our situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about them enough to get an understanding,
Mm-hmm.
only so I can utilize that information in order to benefit us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this is what the archons are? The archons that are written about? Yeah.
It could be, they give them a name, but a name and a face, and
Mm-hmm.
and it really doesn't have much meaning. I mean,
Right.
it's just like, and the hard part is, like, a lot of times people want to know
Mm-hmm.
specifics. They want to know why this, why that, why this, why that, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to push aside a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
that useless data that doesn't have
Right.
anything to do with getting us where we need to go. I mean, it's nice to have a background on it and on certain things, but in reality, what you need is to focus on the solution.
Mm-hmm.
You need to focus on what we need to do to get out of it. Because if we worry about all the shiny objects that float
Mm-hmm.
around all the time, because we're so used to being ADD on everything,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody's so focused on all this because they've got all these shiny objects running around.
Mm-hmm.
You're so doing this, you're so doing that. You're all worried about everything else. You need to focus on getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Getting out is the only way you're going to get out of the system. And at that point, the other stuff, you can begin to look at it, but unless you can focus on that, the other stuff doesn't have any. It's not going to get you out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you need enough to understand what you're dealing with in order to know what you need to do.
Right. Just to watch a TV, you don't need to understand how that TV functions.
Mm-hmm. Right.